Order all your half-shell favorites for takeout or delivery. Visit www.halfshelloysterhouse.com to browse the familiar menu and place your delivery or takeout order in minutes. Same menu prices, just a $5 flat delivery fee every time at Half Shell Oyster House, located at 115 Lower Park Cove, Suite 105, Flowood, Mississippi, 39232, or you can give us a call at 769-257-7586. And oh yeah, tell them Sonia sent you.
She say sports. She say sports. She say sports. She say sports.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonia and welcome back to She Say Sports. Today I have with me licensed professional counselor supervisor, Karen Cummings. Hey Karen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So how's the family?
We're doing well. We're hanging in there like everyone else, taking it day by day, trying to, reclaim a sense of normalcy in some ways.
Yeah, that's true. I think things are trying to get normal again, what we call normal. Let's put it that way.
Exactly.
And I've been meaning to ask you, is your husband, does he know if he's any kin to Terry Cummings, the former NBA player?
I'm going to say no. They have athletes in their families, as you know, some coaches of various universities and athletes that played at universities, but I don't recognize that name. So I'm going to go with no. I'm sure they would have bragged about it by now.
Yeah, they would have bragged about it because he was a pretty big deal. So he's been on the show a couple of times and I was just wondering.
Okay.
But Karen, I brought you, before I talk about what I brought you on for, I'm a puppy mom now. Her name is Nova Grace. I call her Nova G. She's pretty sassy, but she tickles me. I took her to the vet for her third shots today. And when she goes, they be like, "Oh my gosh, she's so sweet. She barely even says anything." But when she gets home, she's trying to boss me around like kids used to do back in the, when kids do their mom and daddy. And I'm like, little girl, so she's in a playpen sleeping now while we're doing this, but she's so sweet. Hi, Sasha. Don't do that.
Talk about that on this.
I asked you for Sasha. I asked you to give me her. How is she doing?
I misunderstood the assignment. Yes, I would have given her away. She's fine. Yeah, she's fine. We spend way too much time together in the pandemic. I mean, goodness, did not help.
Well, she's going to obedience school in the next week or so. So just it's a few little things that because the type of breed she is, she's a golden retriever. She's going to be pretty big. Yeah. And I want to get that under control now before she gets too big and I can't handle her. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's a hoot. She thinks she's a person. I don't know about Nova Grace, but Sasha, okay. She thinks she's a person, and that's really interesting. It stormed here last night, and I tried to let her out. Right, it just started, and there was lightning. She walked out the back door and turned around like, "It's storming out here. I'm not going out here."
Yeah. Remember when we was younger, they used to tie the dogs to the tree. Dogs. Oh God, Lord help us.
My mom says that she's a Kardashian.
See, because that's what they used to do today. Put them on the tree.
And Sasha's in the house and dry. She's like, she's a baby dog.
So I brought you on today to talk about, look, while we playing, a couple of serious matters, and this has been going on forever. It's not like it's new. However, it's been some alarming numbers of suicide and depression that's been going on with a lot of people. As you know, Ian Alexander Jr., Regina King's son, killed himself last month, a few days after his birthday. And I think he was 26, 27, I think. Chelsea Christ, Miss Former USA, she killed herself, fell from a building a few weeks ago. And something was a little close to home for me. Last week, a 15-year-old left her high school, and she went to an interstate and killed herself. She walked up the side, and it's grass. It's like a hill that she could get to the interstate, and she went. It's then the left is stacked, and she jumped and killed herself. And that kind of it shook me and our community. And I have to ride by this interstate every day, going to work and coming back, and it broke my heart. It really did. Um, and that's why I asked you to come on today. Suicide is the third leading cause of death for youth between 10 and 24 years of age, claiming 4,600 lives annually. Suicide kills more teenagers and young adults, get this, than does cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, stroke, pneumonia, influenza, and chronic lung disease. That's wild.
Yeah.
Karen, why do you think teenagers and young adults consider suicide as the only answer to their problem?
Okay, that's a good question. And I don't know, I probably need to get updated. The numbers, obviously stats changed, as you can imagine, over the past 2 years, because as recently as the beginning of this year, I know with NAMI, they cited suicide as the second leading cause of death, but for the age range of 10 to 34. So that could be the difference there. So that's even more significant, right? And touching more people. And I'll say this, I don't believe that people think it's the only way. I think that they reach a point where they feel like they've run out of options. And there's a lot of different factors that come into play for that, right? It's about the person. And I know this is not comfortable for some people to hear, but suicide is a selfish act. So there's nothing anyone could say or do when someone decides that that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to attempt to do. So I think that it's not because they think it's the answer. I think maybe things are just happening too fast. If someone's struggling with depression or substance use, you got impaired judgment there, right? We think about people with serious mental illness that we don't talk about a lot in our culture and community. We kind of make jokes and make memes and skits, but some things are real. And sometimes our people in our culture don't feel comfortable talking about it, that they're hearing voices. And that's serious, because if you are having symptoms like that and they're with commands, that's going to lead or increase the risk of suicide. So I think that it's not so much that they think it's the only choice left, but that this is just going to take the pain away, right? Stop this feeling, stop disappointment, stop the depressive symptoms. They think that it is going to be an end to a means to an end, essentially.
And I know Chelsea's mother said that she was dealing with depression. She was dealing with some mental health issues. And you would have never known, if you saw her on Extra or you saw her win Miss USA. She was so full of life and beautiful. And I mean, the world was her oyster. It was just like she bought her ticket to do anything she wanted to do. And you look at her, she's, it's like, why? And it's hurtful. And then I just hate that they feel like, when the Bible says this too shall pass, it really does pass. But at the time, it doesn't feel like it. We've gone through stuff. I've never wanted to kill myself, but I've been hurt or gone through things. And I thought the pain would never go away, but it did. And it's just, and that's why I asked that question. Are we able to see signs of suicide so we're able to get them help?
Of course. Yeah, sometimes, right? But to come to your point, sometimes they wear a smile and you have no idea that somebody's in pain, right? So you have to just kind of pay attention to other changes, subtle changes in their behaviors. Like they start to give things away, things that they've possessed and loved for a long time, or they may isolate more. You know, we pay attention when someone is struggling with a mental illness like depression or schizophrenia or even bipolar. I mean, that those are risk factors to suicide. Um, Someone who's been exposed to trauma, right? Think about 9/11 and then how many people suicided successfully after that. You know, bullying, which is also a form of trauma, emotional trauma there, domestic violence. There's so many things that we know about people in their everyday life that we see them smiling, so we think they're okay. But we should pay attention to it and have a conversation and encourage them to talk about it. That's what scares me as a provider, when I know that people are dealing with all of these significant stressors in their lives and they sit in my office and still try to smile. And I pointed out, you know, I'm like, well, you know, you telling me that this thing and this thing and this thing, and you're smiling, you know, like I want to let them know you don't have to do that in here, because it's not always worthy of a smile. It's not always funny. And even if you say this too shall pass, I mean, that's a nice thought. That's the truth, right? That's scripture.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't, like you said, feel like that. So we have to get people to talk about the feelings and the emotions and be okay with doing that and not feel embarrassed about doing it. You know, I'm sure Regina King is like, what? You know, but you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know.
So kind of, yes, to your point, there are things that we could pay attention to. There are risk factors that increase the likelihood of someone attempting to kill themselves. And I appreciate you using those words too, because we are trying to change the language around that. If people aren't familiar, there's a really good scale called the Columbia scale that a lot of practitioners will use to measure the risk for suicide potential in someone. So they are very specific about saying, no, ask them if they're planning to kill themselves. Because you have some people who just want to cope with pain, and those are, you know, non-suicidal injuries. Maybe they're cutters. Just because
Yeah.
the person cut doesn't mean they're trying to commit suicide. It's just they're trying to cope, which isn't a healthy coping mechanism. But yeah, I think we have to pay attention to the big picture and not just in the moment what we get and what we see.
Gotcha. Interesting. Stages of depression, because it has to be different stages. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, of course.
You know, I remember when, and I never told you this, I don't think, but I came back home. You know, well, people who don't know, Karen and I met when I moved to Dallas 20 years ago, and been very good friends. She's also my soror. I don't even think I told you this, but a year after I moved back, my hair had started coming out and in the back. And I'm like, what's going on? Because, I was getting my hair done regularly. And one of my coworkers was like, maybe you stressed out or something about something. I was like, no, I'm good. Because again, like you said, I'm always laughing, talk, you know me, I'm a jokester. I like to have fun. And I was still doing it. She said, but what do you talk about every single day? And I was like, what? And she was like, you talk about how much you miss Dallas and this and that. And I realized I was a little depressed. I didn't know it though.
Right.
I had no clue. And so what stages of depression? I mean, do you know the names of them, or how do you even know the different stages?
I think so. You're right. I think there's difference because you can see depression in someone maybe who's grieving, right? And that's easier to kind of pinpoint the stages that they go through: denial, and they
Right.
go through the anger, and they go through the bargaining, and those different stages, which I think is important, you know, to for everyone to be aware of what those stages look like and not put anyone on a timetable. But I think, kind of to your point, behavioral changes is what we look for. You know, are you able to get up out of bed? You know, and I don't know so much stages as it is about severity of
Okay.
the disorder, right? So are you able to get up and go to work? Are you able to brush your teeth? Are you having physiological changes? Are you having physical changes? Like, are you losing weight, gaining weight? Is your hair coming out? Like, like I too have, and this, the body is amazing what it does, because I have like episodes when I get stressed. I don't think I'm stressed, right? I'm type A, I'm just going with the flow. But my body
Right.
lets me know I will start to lose hair, right? And I have to be
Mhm.
very mindful of that too. So I think we have to pay attention to, as we mentioned earlier, those subtle clues, right? Like, oh, you're
Right.
gaining a lot of weight, or oh, you're losing weight, what's going on? People may not think that they're depressed, but we see that there's a change happening. And I think
Mhm.
that would be what I would recommend people use as their guide. Like, do you feel like yourself? Where are you at baseline when everything is great and you're able to go to work? What, tell me about that. And are you there now?
Hmm. Well, one of my next questions I was going to ask you, which I kind of answered it for myself, answered it for myself. I was going to ask, uh, does depression always lead to suicide? And apparently not, because I was depressed.
Right.
I had just lost my father, and I didn't want to really come back home, but I was coming because I wanted to be near my mom. So I didn't die. I didn't kill myself, thank God, but I was dealing with something. So that's interesting. One major cause of teen suicide is bullying. You mentioned that earlier. And I remember when we were younger, there was a little cliche, a little phrase we would say, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names would never hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not true. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
sticks and stones could break your bones, but those names and those words that those kids did, children could be some of the most cruelest of all, because you're still trying to grow, and you're going to school and you want to make friends, and people, they can be so cruel. They can
Mm-hmm.
be so cruel. um Bullying is a real problem, and it's more than just physical bullying. There's verbal, social, and cyber now. I mean, we didn't have the cyber um, bullying when we were growing up. I think maybe just physical and
Mm-hmm.
verbal for the
Yeah.
most part for us. But it's really, really bad now.
Mm-hmm.
What is the relationship between bullying and suicide?
Well, again, for statistics, I would have to look to see what's current. But I mean, think about, I love how you described it too. Think about how bullying tends to impact a person, right? And for me, in my reality, it's not just limited to kids. I think adults are bad too.
Oh
I think
yeah,
trying
especially
to
now
replace.
on social media.
Exactly.
Oh, it's
Exactly.
bad.
Exactly. And so I think that it does become a significant risk factor, to potentially lead someone to kill themselves or want to kill themselves. But I would still say pay attention to everything else too that's going on in that person's life, because that alone, you might feel, if you have a good support system or someone looking out for you and you feel empowered to say, oh, you know what, I'm gonna go to the principal, or I'm gonna report this to law enforcement, or my parents said we're gonna get involved. And so, there's a lot of factors that come into play. From my experience and research, bullying alone, I don't think has ever just led to someone deciding to kill themselves. I
Mhm.
think it is a risk factor, but I think if you imagine someone struggling with sexuality and they're being teased, and we're talking kids, right?
Mhm.
And they go home and they try to tell a parent or a caregiver, and that person is not supportive, not available, not listening, talks just like those people talk, at school,
Right.
then there you go with the feelings of isolation, and then the
Oh,
feelings of hopelessness, right? That compounds what you're dealing with in person or online already.
wow. That's, I didn't think about that part, because you're right. They go home and possibly want to talk to, I understand a lot of kids, you don't tell your mom or dad everything that's going on, because you just don't, because you're thinking you're going to get in trouble too.
Right.
However, um, that's hurtful when you can't go home and talk to somebody. And
Right.
I think, because I was bullied when I was younger, not to the degree, and I told this story on another show and they laughed. I mean, it's funny. It was this guy, his name was Perry, and he lost his arm, one of his arms, and playing around in the washer, and it came off when he was a little boy. So he would always bother me, and I'm like, dude, what is your problem? And so, I'm like, I'm gonna kick your butt, and he was like, let's do it. So we got in a fight. He kicked my butt. I mean, with one arm. I mean, he wore me out. However, he bullied me for a while. I see you about to laugh, but we ended up becoming really good friends in junior high school. I mean, he was hilarious. But and my question is, why do bullies bully?
Oh, Lord help
Why
us.
do bullies bully?
Right?
Nobody ever asked that. Nobody ever, because there's something going on with them. And he was hurting because he lost his arm. You thinking about different stuff. You don't know what struggles they have at home. As I look back in my mind, thinking about when I was a kid, I remember some of the bullies, they didn't do well in school. So to get the attention off of their grades, they would intimidate and fight kids.
Yep. Class clown.
Yep.
All of it.
So, but why do bullies bully?
I think you're right. I love that question. Ooh, I love that question. If some of my parents of the teens I work with be on here, I'd be like, look, attitude reflects leadership, right?
That's
like
right.
What is going on with this
That's
person?
Right.
And you have to be so gentle in approaching it with some caregivers, because they're like, oh, so this is my fault. I ain't never teach them to do that. I'm not saying you taught them to do that, but something is happening where they are learning to cope with problems this way. Now we can state the obvious, right? Sometimes you have individuals with impairments, like developmental impairments, and they just don't know better, right? And so that could just be what shows up. But I think in many ways, it's very much it's a learned behavior, Sonia. It's a learned behavior. And if you didn't teach them by what you did, maybe they learned about what you didn't do. So if I'm at home and you don't beat your child, but your husband or your wife beating you, and they're witnessing it, or you know what I mean? So I know it's going to sound silly, but one of my favorite books, and I read it to the adults because you can learn, is Berenstain Bears, right? They have a book on bullying, and her name was Tuffy. That was the bully's name, Tuffy. Right? Tuffy didn't care that she got in trouble, but once she got sent to the principal's office, she was so afraid about going home because she knew what was going to happen, right?
Parents,
right. So, I think you have to ask that question. You have to move beyond the behavior sometimes with people and really try to figure out what's the emotion driving it. Like, what would make you want to just make someone else so miserable and tell them to go kill themselves and you should die? Who taught you that? Who taught you that?
Who taught you to say that? Go die. Why would you
taught you to say it? Who told you it was okay? So you can say, I saw it in the movie. Okay, who gave you permission to watch the movie? Like, we got to get to the root of where this is coming from. So that I think it's a learned behavior sometimes that people are just, like you said, I grew up and had it hard. I had somebody messing with me. So maybe by the time you got to your teenage years, you fought Perry enough that you was like, I can fight any chick. You know what I mean? Right. So it just depends on, and then if you were dealing with all these other things going on in your life, you could have became that person, right? So you never know. But I always say, look around them. If they're fighting at school and you call them and the parent goes up to the school and then they either justifying the behaviors or cutting up worse than the kid, well, there you go, right there.
You think, and you said something, the parent is coming up, they're letting them know what their child is doing to other child. Should they be held accountable if something happens with another child, or when they, especially when they, they've had to come up there a couple of times and they're like, that's not my son, blah blah blah, taking up for them and not actually dealing with the situation?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't really speak to that because it's a slippery slope being African and female in this country, just being transparent that they're just sometimes just misunderstanding the lack of cultural sensitivity and awareness.
Mm,
I have Caucasian colleagues who have young kids who are very affectionate and playful, and they like to touch. And that's not acceptable in schools today. You have to have boundaries. And so their children have been placed in detention at recess or whatever because maybe they went up and tickled a little girl's neck or something like that that may appear innocent, right? And of course she's frustrated and she's justifying like that wasn't that, but I'm like, but what if a little boy came and did that to him
right.
and he cried when it was done to him, right? We don't know someone's heart. So I think there does need to be boundaries. There obviously needs to be accountability, but whether or not, I don't think I want the school system to decide whether or not, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree.
If
But
there's a legal ramification, that's fine. I mean, that's fair, but I don't think I want the school to do it.
right, I agree. I agree. So can bullying have a serious and lasting effect on the mental health of and well-being of the one that's being bullied?
Absolutely. Yep. Trauma. So yes,
Trauma.
absolutely. Yep. Mhm.
Wow. And that's, it's wow. It's that's sad because, and I knew that, but it's hurtful that they have to deal with that, some of them for the rest of their lives, unless they go, like come and speak with you,
Absolutely.
or
Yep.
pray and try to work on themselves to, just get out of that. But it's very hurtful.
It is. I think that, even if you say, well, I don't want to do a therapist, I don't believe in that. Okay, do what is going to work for you. And if that's not working, do something else. That's, my thing. If you don't want to go talk to a clinician or a therapist and you don't trust the church or whatever, the vice is, do what works though. Don't suffer
Do
in
what works.
silence. Don't do nothing, right? And then be one of the people we're talking about making hashtags and I didn't know, I wasn't aware. Talk to somebody, call a hotline. There's free hotlines. You can say your name is Bob. Ain't nobody gonna know, like just do something
To get it out.
to get it
Just
out.
to get it out. I agree. I agree. So Karen, as you mentioned the 9/11, we've been going through a rough couple of years due to the pandemic. And, it was, quite a few suicides as well during that time. I don't know if you remember, right at the beginning, one of the writers for This Is Us, a young writer too, she killed herself. She was staying at home because she lived alone and she had some mental issues, and she was putting on Twitter, I can't do this, and it was an issue with her when she killed herself. However, it was reported that suicides dropped during the pandemic. In the US, the numbers dropped by 3% overall, according to a report released in November from the National Center for Health Statistics. I think you were trying to say something, and then I'll go on to the next part. Were you about to say anything?
No, I was listening.
Oh, okay. Um, could the reason that the numbers have dropped be because a lot of people were with their families, and or also away from the everyday stresses of work, and they was just like home? I mean, could that have something to do with the drop in the percentage?
I think that's closely been monitored, right? The numbers there, because there was a increase and then there was a decrease, both
Right.
suicide and substance use and domestic violence, right? And within that first six
Oh, it
months
was rough.
period.
Yeah.
So, and then things seem to taper off. Now, I think some of the discussions are, is it because people are able to maybe stay away from stressors? Maybe my work environment was too stressful. Maybe I was being bullied on the job. Maybe I was being bullied at school. So I think they're looking at that. I think maybe people being more compliant with
Okay.
medications, because they're alone and they don't like the way that they feel. So I think
Mhm.
there are a lot of different things that researchers are studying. I know this is a hot topic. It's for the last 6 months. Every time I turn around, a panel discussion is happening about
Mhm.
suicide and the pandemic. So, but the numbers to me seem to go up. You have to look at cultures. You have to look at location, right? Maybe In the South, the numbers are going down, but still somewhere in Seattle, the numbers are still really high. I think those variants should be considered too. But I love to see once it's all over, if I'm alive to see it. Because I think also a thing that comes into play is COVID overshadowed a lot. The deaths, the
That's
numbers
true. That's true.
overshadowed a lot. And maybe things just weren't appropriately um, categorized, right? Remember at one point there were so many bodies, they didn't have anywhere to put people and they didn't know what the cause was. So who knows?
And that also causes depression for the doctors, for the nurses, for the police, firemen, because they had to deal with that. And
Yes.
I wonder if a lot of them are, I pray that they're getting help, because that's a lot.
Yeah, it
That's a
is.
lot. That's a lot. So could you give us some pointers to deal with stress and or depressed emotions or feelings? What are some things that we can do to deal with that?
Yeah. So as we mentioned earlier, I'm a huge proponent of talking about it,
Mm-hmm.
however that looks, and giving others space to talk about it, right? Without judgment, without criticism. You all, I mean, you probably wouldn't, Sonia, but it's just so shocking is to still hear how hard we are on each other. Certain cultures, that is just, it's shameful that you are depressed. It's shameful that you are having these thoughts. What's wrong with you? Are you crazy? There's something, and I'm like, yeah, there's something wrong with them. Yeah, like it's a chemical imbalance. Understand what it is, but talking about it is always going to be my thing. Whether you talk to your friend or you talk to your coworker or you talk to your priest or your pastor or whomever, talk about it, get it out. If you can't do that, journaling is really helpful. Exercising is easy enough. Exercising does not have to be going to LA Fitness for 2 hours a week,
Just
or a
walk.
day.
Just walk.
Just walk, jump
Just
rope,
walk.
do whatever, get out, do something, stay moving. That's true. um Obviously I'm gonna advocate for people to do talk therapy because I know it works. I know the benefits of it. It's not something that has to happen long term. If you
Right.
have what we call EAP, employee assistance program benefits through your employer, that's a set number of sessions at no cost to you, and all it is talking. And just the key is finding someone you feel comfortable talking to. But when I mentioned earlier about creating a safe space for people to talk, right? There's something I teach clients that I learned one year when I did work at a Christian sports camp one summer. And they have this thing they call say so. And that's where you could get up at the mic and you could say whatever's on your heart and nobody can interrupt you, can ask questions, nothing. There's no judgment. You just do it. And I think we should do that too in relationships. Like be able to say, I want to take a minute. I want to say something. I don't want you to comment. I don't want you to say anything. Just listen. I need to get it out. So definitely talking to someone. Also within families, I know that, we like to think about family as support. And sometimes it's just not,
It's not.
I swear every time I think
Sometimes.
about when I hear that phrase, if my family wasn't my family, we wouldn't be friends. I'm like,
Wow.
it's so true. Y'all better recognize that because self-care is not selfish. And if that
That's
means you
true.
got to put people on block for a week and pretend like your phone messed up or whatever.
That's
You
just to give yourself a break. You're right.
right, disconnect.
Well,
Disconnect.
I- let me tell you how that's so important sometimes. Even God told Abraham he said, leave your family,
Bye.
and was upset when he brought his nephew with him because he was like, I told you. And what his nephew brought
Yes,
issues.
yes,
And
yes.
I'm not saying that's not, because it's some people very close to their family and they,
And that's
you
great.
know, and that's wonderful. Everybody is not like that.
That's
You
right.
don't know how people grew up. You don't know the different issues, and you love them, but sometimes you have to love them afar, and that's okay. I think
Yeah,
that's
that's just
okay.
a boundary. It's just a boundary. It's just a healthy boundary. And we all have them. We all have
Yeah,
boundaries with something. So why not have one when you feel overwhelmed by trying to please your family or be accepted by people or live up to the expectations of others and feel overwhelmed? Why not just take a break? Just
just
take
take
a
a
moment
break.
away from it,
I
you know?
totally agree.
And then I would also just throw in, like, there are so many resources that are not being utilized. Everyone thinks of what's promoted during an awareness month, right? Oh, this is the National Suicide Hotline. That's not the only hotline, y'all. There's local, probably mobile crisis units within most major cities. There are free hotlines for almost any type of illness or struggle that you go through. Don't limit yourself. And again, if you're not comfortable letting everybody know what's going on with you, you can be anonymous. You don't have to, they don't ask for your information. It's free. But I just think it's important to talk and use resources as much as possible if you're dealing with depression. And if you don't get better, I would say see a doctor, because untreated depression will not go away. It will get worse if you don't do something about it.
That's right. That's true. And you mentioned, I'm gonna move on, but you mentioned earlier that, just talk to somebody. One thing I can say, women, we talk. We have our girlfriends, our sister circles, and you know, I had, we had each other. It was like six of us in Dallas, and we leaned on each other. And I was, thankful for that. But men don't do that very often. They hold it in. I got to be strong. You can't see me cry. That I make me look weak. Men talk. Open your mouth and say something. Just be honest. Be honest. Just get a brother. Most of the time they go play basketball and they may talk a little, but just
Mhm.
just be honest, sir.
Yeah,
Please.
they're probably going through the same thing you're going through, or
Mhm.
can relate, in many ways. Depression doesn't have a look. It doesn't
Doesn't
have
have a look.
a face, neither does suicide. I think about gosh, she was just interviewed, Chloe Kim,
Mhm.
the Olympian snowboarder. She's Asian
Yeah.
American. And
Mhm.
after she won her first gold medal, I think in 2018, at 17 years old, everyone would have thought she at the top of her game. Just like with Simone Biles, she was struggling.
Struggling.
There's no look to it. There's a lot of pressure to be an athlete. There's a lot of pressure to be at the top of your game for sure, but just even to be on the team and to stay on the team, and that's their career.
That's a career,
It's
yeah.
their
And
livelihood.
everybody's
So
watching.
yeah, everyone's watching and criticizing and judging, and you know what I mean? So you just never know. I think it's so important that people, like you said, talk to someone. And women, we, again, the pandemic really shed the light again on how many women don't talk, though,
Really?
that are in domestic violence or
Oh
in
yeah, that's true.
intimate partner abuse. They're quiet. I pay attention to that too. If I met your man and he's loud or he's controlling and you're quiet, I'm gonna pull your coattail like, hey, you okay? Because I know you can't say it in front of him or whatever, but pay attention to those types of
Mhm.
little things. Don't judge, if somebody's stupid for staying. You don't know unless you've been there. You
You
don't
you
know.
have no clue, and
You
that's
have
true.
no clue. Yeah.
That's true. Um, well, I'm gonna move on from that. And if you have some hotline numbers or information that out, we'll give that at the end. But since it's a sports podcast, we got to talk just a little sports, just a
Mhm.
little. So, this past Sunday, head coach Juwan Howard of the University of Michigan got into an altercation with Coach Guard. Um, what Juwan said was Coach Guard touched him and, grabbed his arm or something, and he didn't like it or whatever. So he put his finger in Coach Guard's face. Matter of fact, the student athletes rather, were walking up to shake their hand. Wisconsin beat University of Michigan. I think it was 77 to 63. However, so while they're doing that, the coaches are going at it. And when they're pulling Coach Howard back, he slaps the assistant coach, Krabenot. I think Kraben, I can't,
That's correct.
Krabenhot. I'm sorry. And so they suspended Coach Howard 5 games, and that's the rest of the regular season. And he was fined $40,000. and Crab and Hop was fined $10,000, mainly because he didn't de-escalate the situation. He was egging it on, and then the kids got involved. So first of all, it's not a good look. You're supposed to be leaders, and you have you children. Well, they're young adults. They're watching you handle your issues by fighting. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well,
And do you think the suspension and the fine fits what
oh,
Coach Howard did?
I completely, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes beyond that, because that's huge, right? That just respect is one thing, but also just being aggressive in nature. I wouldn't be surprised if they use that as a reason to end his contract or something. But my initial thought was, I don't think he should be fired. I definitely think there should be at least
No.
at minimum a 2-game suspension and a fine. I knew that would happen. While everyone was like, oh, he'll be fired for this. And I'm like, yeah, no, maybe not. But so I think it kind of goes back to boundaries, right? And I'm not justifying behaviors on either side, because I'm human. And I don't know, when we get in our heads and we think that this thing happened to us the way we think it happened, and then you come into our personal space,
Right.
It's up for interpretation at that point. So I can appreciate that they did it on both sides, right? I can appreciate that, because I think it was warranted. When, just like we say, as an adult, you should know, because anger comes from a place of, usually people who are angry have this sense of injustice or frustration, or they're hurt, or afraid of something. So I completely could see that going on in his head, like, man, get out of my face, like, that wasn't right. You got to know how to read the room here, coach. Like, if the man said get out of my face, culture matters. Like, you don't continue to step forward. I mean, we tell you that in any conflict, take a break, right? If the person's trying to walk away, don't ever try to stop them and then be loud and put your hands in their face or whatever. So I'm glad it was looked at as wrong in some way on both sides. Obviously, I mean, I like sports. I watch sports too. I don't think he handled that situation appropriately at all. I think it would have been better for him to go with his first mind, which was to not go down the line. Even though, I could see the struggle there. Like, if I don't, then I'm gonna look like a sore loser. But then if I do, and they say something crazy, you got to know your limit. You got to know what you can and can't handle in that moment.
Know yourself.
And take care of yourself. Yeah, and take care of yourself.
Well, and I totally agree with you. I think it was warranted for him to get the suspensions as well. However, I don't know if you remember Coach Bobby Knight of the Hoosiers, Indiana Hoosiers, back in the day. He was, he threw a chair at a referee because he was angry because of all the fouls that his team was getting. And he was deemed as a hero. And the only reason why he ended up getting fired, because he pretty much choked the kid out. He wanted to, and they fired him, I think in 2000. But why is it different? Do you think it's because the culture has changed? Because back in the 70s and 80s, even like, I mean, TV was different, the Jeffersons, and I'm using good time, they used to say hunky and the N word. I mean, flowing, and it was not a problem. But you can't say certain things now anymore. The culture is different. Do you think that had a lot to do with it? What's going on with Coach Howard getting the backlash?
I do. I think so. I think because we have made it a point to have so many, what's the best way to say this? Like, everyone matters, right? So because we're promoting that, which is true, because we're promoting it, there has to be accountability across the board now. Before, it wasn't as balanced.
Right.
And so there was like no accountability if ever this type of person did something, but if this type of person did it, then it's prison and life forever, right? And we are really being very more vocal about justice. So something we know had to happen. I really thought that they would give in to the pressure and just try to terminate them all together. And that wouldn't have shocked me. because they're pushing. And we have that To Kill a Mockingbird or a Time to Kill moment where we flip it around, right? Like, but what if this Caucasian coach had hit this African-American brother, right?
Exactly.
Then we all would have been like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And he only got 5. That's all you know what I mean? So
it's true.
I can see it kind of both ways there, but I think it was fair. And I do think it is, to your point, driven by just changes culturally across the country and across the world, right?
Right. I totally agree. So I wish Coach Howard well, he's and like you said, like he's human, and he got caught up.
Yeah.
Probably angry and I didn't watch the game, so I don't know what happened that it got to that level. But I wish him well. I really and I kept calling him Jawan because I'm used to him as a player. And I want to respect him as Coach Howard.
Yes.
So,
right.
But Karen, before I let you go, it's been a pleasure. First of all, I play a little game called You Can Get With This or You Can Get With That. And
because this is where it's at. Okay, I'm sorry.
And so what it is, it's a way for the listeners and myself to get to know the guests better. I'll ask you a few questions and you choose the one that best fits you. Okay?
Anya, are these questions going to be appropriate, or are they, things about me that you about to put me? Okay.
No, they're very appropriate. Hey, I'm trying to go up higher. So this one is a Dallas thing for us. Do you prefer Uncle Julio's or Mi Cocina?
Ooh,
we used to tear Uncle Julio's up.
I know. For food, I'm gonna have to go with Uncle Julio's. For drinks, I might go to Mi Cocina.
You know what? I'm on a Mi Cocina tip. Every time I come home, that's what I want now. I hadn't gone to UJ's in a minute. So
it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Feel good.
You about to laugh because y'all, these are 2 of her favorite songs. Karen, do you prefer Get Here If You Can by Alita Adams or So Into You by Tamia?
I'm gonna go with Tamia just because I can funk it up a little bit. So I'm gonna go with Tamia.
I can't believe it. Because I remember the story that was with Get Here. Oh my gosh, I am in shock.
I just sent that to you like a few months ago.
Y'all, another show. So do you prefer, I know the question to this one, the answer.
Okay.
Do you arrive early or arrive late?
See, I just think that depends on how you perceive things. I'm on time.
What? Y'all, we used to be I'm telling you, here go, hey y'all. We would be like, heifer. Hey Karen, we've been here 2 hours. Okay. Hey girl.
Oh, I'm torty for the porty. I am. I'm better. I'm so much better. I've grown.
I'm glad.
My husband is not late, so I have to do better. He's very punctual.
Thank you, brother Cummings. I've been trying for years. Finally got my man to get her straight. You prefer concerts or sporting events?
Oh,
I know.
You don't want does no examples, like just random?
Just okay. For instance, and that's why I called you last week. But I'm going to see New Edition somewhere else. So I was calling to see, did you had you got your ticket? Because somebody named Tina. She was like, girl, when it came out, I got my ticket. I'm going by myself. I ain't feel like waiting on. I was like, unbelievable.
She will not be by herself. We will be with her.
Okay.
Yes. So, I'm gonna say, because I'm funny about my shows, my concerts. So I will say, unless it's New Edition, I'm gonna pick a sporting event.
Okay. Even when the one we went to go see SWV. Guy and
see,
Tony.
I mean, I'm probably gonna pass up the game to go see that. That's why I said you gotta pick the
Okay, well, I should have did. Okay, well, fine, whatever. So we'll say concert.
Yes.
You prefer funny movie or dramatic movies?
I prefer funny.
Funny, okay. You got a favorite one of yours that you like?
I have clips, right? So different things from different movies I will watch over and over. Like anything. Kevin Hart is a whole nut.
I just saw him in concert again last week. Oh,
I will watch his
so much
commercials over and over. But I think the one thing that I started, something came on TV, but on Bridesmaids, where she stole the puppies. And she was driving down the road. Like every time I have to watch it because that's the best part to me of the whole show. So
I can see, yeah. Now, one of my favorite movies
in comedy movies.
Right. One of my favorite, Tina bought this for my birthday in 2008. Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins. Let me tell you something. First of all, the whole movie is funny, but it, like you said, it's certain parts that takes me out.
Yes.
I love that. That's one of my favorites of all time.
Yes.
You gotta move because you got another meeting. Pause time. Would you prefer to pause time or rewind time?
Oh my Lord. Man, I think I might pause it for a little bit.
Well, that's deep. If that is going good, then if you want to pause it, I like that. Do you prefer sight or sound?
Oh gosh,
they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, but so I would think I prefer to see to sight.
Sight.
See. Yeah, over hearing. Yeah.
You prefer massive success by accident or modest success on purpose?
Show me the money.
So is that massive success?
Quickly, yeah, however it happens.
Quickly. I agree. Then I kind of like the modest because it depends on the situation. And the reason why, because it's just like you'll see the steps that it took you to get there and how you've grown. So yeah, but I'm like you, massive. Would you prefer rekindling a friendship or rekindling romance?
Oh, a friendship, because if it didn't work, it just didn't. So
that's right. You was like, yeah.
Move on. Friendship.
I was the one kept giving chances.
Yeah. Let that go. Yeah.
Now I already know the answer to this one. You prefer loving basketball or brown sugar?
You already know the answer
Say
to
it.
that one.
Say it. That's my
loving basketball.
I love it. That's one of my favorite shows. You hear Nova barking? You hear Nova?
Cut up. Yes. Be quiet. Nova Sasha will come up here next. Like, what's that?
She like, come and get me, lady. I'm hungry. So Karen, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Please tell the followers how they can, I can't concentrate because she's barking. Please tell the followers how they can follow you on social media, give you information just in case someone wants to give you a call and talk. Or if you, and also if you have information regarding hotlines and stuff like that.
So I'll keep it really quick and short so that people can remember. If you go to a website called Psychology Today and enter my information, my name, it'll pull up a page and then you'll have all my other contact information and background and ways you can connect with me and things like that. And then as far as the hotlines, also kind of keeping it easy for people to remember, think big organizations first, right? Like NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. They are a great resource for connecting you with things locally as well. If you can't remember anything else, just remember NAMI because everybody talks about NAMI this time of year. Also,
what's the letters for the acronym?
NAMI.
NAMI. MI. Okay.
MI, mental illness is the last word.
Gotcha.
And then SAMHSA, which is SAMSHA, and that's the substance abuse mental health a support, it's an organization, right? So you can go there. Just one thing I want everyone to know, like, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't worry about if you can afford it. You cannot afford to not get help or support.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right. I totally agree. And guys, you can follow me at She Say Sports on Facebook, She Say Sports 23 on Instagram, at She Say 23 on Twitter, and please subscribe to our YouTube page, She Say Sports. Well, that's my show for today. Until next time, this is Sonia with She Say Sports. Bye.